Oh, I did not see her comment. How long have I been playing? You still there, first of all? Was totally not paying attention to the log, because whoever... Okay, cool. Yeah, because whoever was in here, they weren't even signed in on Twitch, so I wasn't sure. This is actually a new account. I guess you'd say newer account because I lost my previous account information for prior to Abyssia. This is actually a post-Abyssia account. Currently only have a 99 Blue Mage and a 99 Puppet Master with just kind of pretty decent gear. But I would say this account's probably less than a year old. But overall, I've been playing the game since... Oh, man. I'd say prior to Urgen, so probably at the very beginning of Chains of Prometheus, whenever that came out. So I've been playing the game for a long time. I was actually known as the same name character that you see, Kaitaru. I was actually the same character name on Gilgamesh, which was my original server before I moved to Asura. Finally actually getting some EXP, which is nice. 200 a pop, but then again, it's because I'm only level 60 still. So EXP is going to still be capped off for me.
And you should still get it to about 400.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll still be fine. Looks like we kicked the people.
So didn't they say they were gonna change the some of the trials or no?
The which trials?
Modern trials?
Matsui actually sat there and shit talked Tanaka forever about, the obtaining of the REM weapons, but nothing has been changed and there's no plan to change anything in obtaining them, which is why there's been a kind of like everyone's currently at a standstill with what they should do and whether or not they should even make a REM weapon because they're currently deciding on, how things are going to go from here because you can't pull 1,500 metal plates out of your ass anymore because no one does Void Watch. So ultimately, it's become in the past couple of weeks to a month nearly impossible to um, obtain the level 95 and 99 upgrades items. Well, hold on, I'm actually answering
Whoa.
some questions on the people
3,000
on my
Rift
stream.
drops.
So one sec. Actually, this is Abyssia. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Abyssia. These are like level 80 plus. What level are these worms, Blazik?
Is it like 80, 85?
Yeah, they're. Hold on. They're 80 to 85. I'm currently only level 60. Are you familiar with the Abyssia burning, or are you a pre-Abyssia player? Because the game's current content cap is 99. These monsters are like a joke. Let's see here. Hold on, moving the chat log over here. Looks like let's see here. BCNM, is that what you're saying? I'm not understanding the BCIM. Oh, then I'm assume that, you are a pre-Abyssia player. Abyssia was released in, I believe, 2009. I could be wrong. It could be, I think it was early 2009. And it's been kind of, the game has been going through like mini updates. When did Abyssia, the first Abyssia release, Blazik? Wasn't it like 2007 or 8?
It's been about 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, anyways, that's when they actually, Wings of the Goddess was the last legitimate expansion that Final Fantasy XI had. And it's been kind of like on life support since then. They've been doing small content packs, which originally, when they came out, would add like 5, 10 levels to the game, and they costed $10 a pop. And essentially, they would feature these zones, which were noted as the previous, like in Wings of the Goddess. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they were you went to the past in some of the previous zones in the original Final Fantasy, like saga, the FF11 saga. Like you got to go to Windurst in the past, Sandoria in the past, and then you would go to uh, there's other like events related that you do, but essentially what they did is they imported these, like I'm in Abyssia Lothian, but the only thing that is notable up in terms of change is that this is still essentially the Lothian in the past zone, and like except the sky is a different color. That's about the only difference. And there's NMs, different higher level mobs, and there's packets and pockets of different monster families that have different purposes, for leveling, obtaining items, pop items. There's NMs that you pop, and you start farming what are called the Empyrean gear, which is your Artifact 3 set, which is kind of like was the first stepping milestone in the Abyssia era. And that's when the level cap increased from level 75 all the way to 99 in the most the latest pack. Right now, we're in Seekers of Adulan, which is the game's after about 5 or 6 years was the first real expansion that the game's releasing the 2 new job classes, the Rune Fencer and the Geomancer. And when you say BCNM, I assume that you're talking about pre Abyssia. So that was the level 75 content pack, where people did like for Peacock Charms, black belt items, fought the Worm Kings and stuff like that and whatnot. Yeah, it's been a while. The game's still kicking in well, but a lot of dramatic changes to the game, such as the game's kind of adopted an incremental progression philosophy instead of like waiting in line, collecting DKP, and getting screwed over by, link shell drama. It's kind of like, the game's kind of become like a traditional pickup groups work really well. You don't need to be a link shell to accomplish anything, It's got its strings of good and bad. I'm doing older content right now because I'm leveling a Corsair because to get into the newer, higher level content, because I've been kind of on and off of this game, and my friends that I'm talking over on Vent on, we're kind of all in the same boat. We take we play 3 months on, 6 months off. We go play WoW, like other newer MMOs that come out, and just kind of, we're kind of in the transition phase, waiting for 14 to come out. So this is just kind of keeping us entertained in the meantime. But if you want to follow me, or just kind of check up on the stream, I will be streaming eventually later this coming week. I will be streaming some Seekers of Adulan content once I can get my Corsair geared out. I just need to get a couple pieces of the Artifact 3 set from Abyssia, so it still will be a little Abyssia content. but I will be adding highlights. I'm just, really I'm just doing this stuff on Twitch because it's easier to just set up a stream to select highlights out of each individual video and then just post them up on Twitch and then like take small highlights that I made and post them on YouTube because not everyone wants to literally watch 45 minutes of people talking and playing a video game, but at times I can stand to be corrected, so. No, thanks for adding me on. Um, I do have currently beta access to FF11. I mean, sorry, FF14. They were doing. I'm not sure if you've been closely following the game, but it's essentially been in for the first year of its infancy. The game was released very incomplete and very, very horribly released. So, the game was free to play for the entire first year and the patch 1.19, which was like a major patch on a content level, UI level, gameplay level, and several different other things. It was kind of like the miracle patch for the game, if I may, that released. And following that, it continued its subscription model for the all of last year, I believe. I do not remember for the life of me when the servers went down, but they took down the servers. Actually, I don't think they took down the servers. You can still currently play on their servers, but they stopped retaining character data, and they're currently transferring everyone's, things into 14.2.0, which essentially is going to be running on a new server structure. It's going to be running on a brand new engine. It's going to be running on entirely new UI, gameplay elements. Classes are being reworked. Their mechanics are being changed. It's completely, whether or not you play for the first 2 years of Final Fantasy XIV or you didn't at all, it's going to be a new experience for everybody. And they actually started something where it's called, it's not really founder status. What is the thing that they give you on 14, where you get all the open beta access and whatnot for being subbed for 3 months in a row? What was that called again?
Legacy?
Legacy accounts. They started doing legacy accounts where if it was during when the game was actually subscribed, if you were subscribed for X amount of months, I believe it was about 4 months, you gained legacy, and that gave you access. First, place access to all the 14 betas. Currently, they finished up closed beta 2 a couple weeks ago, and they're now going to be opening up, and each beta they're actually inviting more and more people. So just because you're not a legacy member doesn't mean that you won't be able to get in. I do suggest signing up for the beta on their website and seeing if you can get in. But the third phase is actually going to be, they're going to be testing the PlayStation 3 client pretty heavily. I'm pretty sure it's going to be PC also, but it's going to be their first foray in creating like a public test client for the PlayStation 3 version of the game, which isn't going to be running on its own exclusive engine. And for your final question, I apologize if I kind of yammer on, but for someone that's not really been kind of keeping up, there has been a lot of changes kind of involving between FF11 and 14. And Sky actually was kind of like one of the previous events. There are a couple of events that post-Abyssia actually received updates. Salvage in Wings of, not Wings, in Odd Ergen. Salvage actually received a 2.0 upgrade where it got scaled up to level 99 with new gear and new, challenges, new bosses, whatnot. And Neo Nizul Isle was actually the predecessor of Nizul Isle, where instead of you saving data every 10 floors that you climb, you would have to get to floor 100 in order to get the best gear. Like some of the best gear currently, at the time that was and still is pretty competitive up until you get to the Seeker's gear, Seekers of Dueling new equipment that was released. Um, Sky unfortunately never received a rehash like Salvage and Nizul Isle did. So unfortunately, not a lot of people do Sky. Some of the pieces can be, sought after, like Byakko Saidate or, other gear that was, exclusive to that event. It's still worth doing and still worth, to some people, but it's by no means a main scale event at all. It's currently right now, like, the game is out of the whole Abyssia era for a couple of years now. It's moved to outside of the new zones where, you do Void Watch, where you essentially, go through a hierarchy of monsters in order to spawn like higher tier monsters, and then those higher tier monsters have like a percentage. They incorporated a new personal drop system, so you don't have to compete for someone else. But it was kind of a flawed system to begin with because, sure, everyone has personal loot every time a monster dies, but because of that, like, pieces, really sought after pieces like one of the body pieces that I can't for the life of me remember what it was called, it had a less than a 1% drop rate. So, now it's kind of like that era. And then at the very end of the Void Watch era, they started Legion, which was kind of like the first full-scale event that kind of brought link shells back into the game because it really, really pushed the limits of what players could do, and really had a very, very difficult content or difficulty curve for players, and required, players to be overly equipped with the Relic, Empyrean, and Mythic weapons. Since the Abyssia update, obviously obtaining Mythic weapons became easier. Abyssia released what was called the Empyrean weapons that kind of, they stand on the same ground. They just work differently than the Relic and the Mythic. And then they reworked Dynamis to where it's now an open zone that you can do 2 hours a day, and then you can farm currency and you can casually do it solo, duo, trio, and, obtaining a Relic weapon and getting it to 99 is actually very easy. So, like Relic, Empyrean, and Mythic weapons for players that have been playing for the past couple of years is actually pretty commonplace now. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to go through for someone that's kind of been out of the loop. I personally took a really long break when Abyssia was announced because I was actually one of those type of people that I really didn't care for doing endgame. I didn't have my current work at the time. I didn't have an animate work schedule at all. So essentially what that gave me was, I didn't want to have, need to be on, I didn't want to be expected to be on at a certain amount of time and wouldn't be able to get on because, events were taken pretty seriously back then, and, it was, you got to be there or bust in a lot of cases, or, you'd be taking over people that will be guaranteed to be there, at the time of the event. So, I didn't really get to see a lot of it. I heard a lot of it. I loved leveling and I loved the community, of the game. That's essentially, this is kind of like the first MMO that I legitimately played and loved. And to this day, I can't find one that's as good as it. And in the year 2013, the past 10 years have given birth to like a generation of rehashes and regurgitated WoW clones that, can't even scale, to the, just impartial, to other previous MMOs, like, in that whole time frame. A lot of developers don't understand. They just measure success as, making it like World of Warcraft and, don't understand that, why would someone take an unpolished, unbalanced, aged MMO that doesn't have content. If people want to play WoW, they will go play WoW. So, that's essentially why I always find myself coming back to this game every couple months because there really isn't anything quite like it. This game isn't without its faults at all. One of the biggest faults was Abyssia, brought forward a proccing system, which, you would have to have like an elemental for magic proc, you would have a weapon proc, and then you would have a specific weapon skill proc that you would in order to give different behaviors to the mobs. Like magical procs were called yellow procs, which associated with the monster dropping more papers, more like jewels and fragments for upgrading people's artifact Empyrean armor, which was kind of the most important thing. And, unfortunately, like Black Mage had 80% of all the procs when they subbed Bard for the Threnities for the rest of the elemental for magic procs. So essentially what happened was, the game currently, I believe, at 22 classes now. I could be wrong. They effectively made, like everything but 5 classes, like, worth doing. Blue Mage had one of the 7 magical procs, so it still had some use. So essentially it became Blue Mage, Black Mage. Warrior had all the weapon skill specific procs for people to obtain Atma, which are kind of like attachable effects that you can put on yourself while you're in these zones to give you this humongous unfair advantage. And then you had blue procs were for more for actual weapon or armor drops, which usually very rarely do people go after. But Warrior had covered most of these procs, and then you'd have White Mage for the healer and the other procs, the light procs and some of the dark procs, and then you'd essentially that's it. That's all you need. Anything more than the 5 classes were utterly useless. And so if you wanted to get into group farming pages, stuff like that, you had to play one of 5 classes. There's a lot of class favoritism in this game. And because of the whole Legion, which I told you, which was the difficult content, and because Relic, Empyrean, and Mythic weapons became commonplace, the only way that Square Enix could challenge its player base, because everyone had all these powerful weapons, was to make bosses that would AoE one-shot everyone if they weren't killed within a 5-minute window, which was just crazy. And like with the level cap increase, any kind of like hate management or enmity system that the game had before was thrown out the window. Paladin became useless through most of the Abyssia era, the Void Watch era, and some of the very end of the other era of Legion. So essentially what people did is they got Dark Knight, Warrior, and Samurai, which were like one of the 3 heavy classes, and they would equip negative PDT, negative MDT gear. So magic defense, and physical defense, and they could, there's actually these pieces of armor kind of strewn about in different events, Odin fights, previous content, that would give you like maybe a little bit of accuracy, some core stats, and then, they would give you PDT or MDT. And you'd cap at 50%, physical damage taken and magical damage taken, and then they would zerg these bosses with all these people that, had straight up damage, and, whatever damage they lost from not equipping accuracy and attack gear or pure core stat gear, they'd have, bards with Drabla for 4 song, cycling 8 songs, and then Corsair buffs to supplement what they've lost in stats. And then essentially they would just zerg these monsters brainlessly and thoughtlessly to kill them. So essentially the game became Dark Knight, Warrior, Samurai, Scholar, or Bust. So if you didn't like playing one of those 4 classes, it didn't matter, because that was the way, players figured out that they could get the content with the highest success rate. So this game had like a very large era of, you need to play this class to gear out this class, and you're probably never going to play that class that you've geared, and it was always a head scratcher for me. And that's kind of like the frustrating detail, because I liked playing Puppet Master, which is a great solo class, and it did a really great job, and it farmed me a lot of my Abyssia gear, my artifact gear, my weapons, and it got me a lot of stuff. Like, we got a lot of stuff done between me and a couple of RL friends of mine. However, as far as endgame, the class is useless. because it doesn't stack up to other classes because certain mechanics. Like puppet masters have to constantly manage maneuvers, and while they're casting maneuvers, there's a second of them not attacking because they are stuck in animation, and they have to do it so consistently that they lose so much DPS that it ultimately makes the class useless in comparison to other damage classes of their role. So, stuff like that. The game isn't without its flaws. Matsui Tanaka actually stepped down, which is, I believe he was the battle content, and he was kind of responsible for all the. Oh, that's it. It really depends on how much you have done on the account. If you have all the limit breaks done for whatever account that you have, leveling has taken a back seat with Abyssia. Like, you can enter Abyssia at level 30, which essentially is one of the things that killed traditional EXP parties in this game. But you can essentially do what I'm doing. I'm just opening chests, gaining lights so you can get more EXP, while, you have an alliance of 18 people just killing mobs, massacring mounds of mobs. And there's no EXP deficiency in Abyssia. I'm sure you've noticed. You gain great EXP and everyone gets, there's no penalties at all. Obviously, I'm leveling with level 90 to 99, like anyone between level 75 and 99, and I'm level 60, and there's no penalties. So, this is kind of like the new great EXP place to catch. And, back then, 20k EXP an hour in a merit party was amazing. You can pull easily 200k plus EXP an hour in these groups. So essentially, if you really wanted a gun for it, you can get in here at level 30, and you can effectively get from level 30 to level 99 in a matter of a day. I'd say 8 to 10 hours. I just kind of throwing it out there. A full day of EXP in one sitting, someone could technically get to level 99. And then it's a matter of doing Abyssia. It's really who you're going with, like, do you know people? If you have a couple of people returning. And that's kind of like what's always been the determining factor for me in playing this game is, should I come back? And usually, like me, my friend Blazik, Black Lagoon, and then my girlfriend Rem, like, we've kind of like, brought together this A team that we all get on FF, and when we all get on and we all sub and we all sit down, we make goals and we just knock shit out in crazy efficiency. Each of us has a class, a role that works well and, synergizes well with everyone else, and we just straight up, blow through content. So, if just one person isn't thinking about returning to the game, usually the rest of us don't bother. Fortunately, I was able to convince everyone else. One of my friends has already been playing for a long time. My girlfriend is always up to playing Final Fantasy, but she is in the same regards that I am. If there's not if the A team isn't back in action, there really isn't any motivation to do so. So if you got a couple of people you can bring back to the game that you'd be down to doing, then yeah. As far as joining up and maybe seeing if we could help you out and whatnot, I don't really make any promises, and that's because the Final Fantasy XIV launch is actually already been announced. It's, I believe, August the 27th or the 28th. So depending on how much time that you can put in this game and the amount of time you plan to invest, I wouldn't see it. If you have a level 75 character or you have other things that you want to level, I wouldn't see you accomplishing a lot until then. Like, by the time 14 comes out, if you plan to play 14. With my situation, I can get to Corsair. I can get my Corsair level 9 in a day because I already have all the limit breaks done. I have, a group of people standing by that I can just be like, hey, guys, I need 4 out of 5 pieces of Corsair AF gear. Boom, I'll have it done in a couple of days. In a matter of a week, I'm already caught up with where I was with my previous characters, because that's how quick content has moved forward. But essentially, it could seem a lot to take in, unfortunately. But you do have to have something to get, into the later, events in the game. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing Corsair, because, playing like a support class or playing like, a really good DD class is what gets you in. Support class, thankfully it's not really, doesn't have a steep requirement, so if you like find yourself liking Bard or Corsair, it's actually a pretty good route to go. It's fairly quick to level. You'll get invited to these groups. You get to 99 at no time flat. You just have to dedicate a little bit of gil to get some of the better rolls in the game. Then essentially you just get some basic Abyssia gear, and then people will invite you because they don't expect you to pull damage. So, well, like I said, it is a very play this class to get gear for that class. This game, like I said, is not something without its flaws. So, in my personal opinion, I would recommend, if you're a pre-Abyssia player, there will be just too much for you to catch up on, or just to understand, because this game is nothing like it was previously. And you mentioning if I did Sky was proof of that. It's really gone just someplace entirely.